चंद्रमौली महाराज। जय राधा माधव जय कुंज बिहारी, जय राधा माधव जय कुंज बिहारी, जय राधा माधव जय कुंज बिहारी, जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी, जय गोपी जन वल्लभ जय गिरिवरधारी, जय गिरिवरधारी, जय गोपी जन वल्लभ जय गिरिवरधारी, जय गिरिवरधारी, जय गोपी जन वल्लभ जय गिरिवरधारी, जय गिरिवरधारी, जय गोपी जन गिरिवरधारी, जय जय यशोदानंदन जय ब्रज जनरंजन, जय यशोदानंदन जय ब्रज जनरंजन, जय यशोदानंदन जय ब्रज जनरंजन, यशोदानंदन, जय यमुना तीरवनचारी जय कुंज बिहारी, जय कुंज बिहारी, जय यमुना तीरवनचारी जय कुंज बिहारी, जय कुंज बिहारी, जय यमुना तीरवनचारी जय कुंज बिहारी, जय कुंज बिहारी, यमुना तीरवनचारी जय कुंज बिहारी, जय कुंज बिहारी, जय राधा माधव 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 जय कुंज बिहारी, हरे Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Prabhupada Jai Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Jaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Ruttama-shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtike Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nanda Gopakumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha Hare Krishna. So we'd like to welcome all to our morning Bhagavatam class. Today we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 15, chapter entitled The Pandavas Retire Timely, text number 45. Please repeat after me. Sarve tam anu nirjagmur Sarve tam anu nirjagmur Bhratara krita nischaya Bhratara krita nischaya Kalina dharmena mitrena Kalina dharmena mitrena Drishtva sprishta prajabhuvi Drishtva sprishta prajabhuvi Sarvetam anu nirjagmur Bhratara krita nischaya Kalina dharma mitrena Drishta sprishta prajabhuvi. Mataji? Word to word meaning. Sarve, all his younger brothers, tam, him, anunirjagmu, left home by following the elder, bhratara, brothers, kritanishchaya, decidedly, kalina, by the age of Kali, adharmam, principle of irreligion, mitrena, by the friend, drishtva, observing, sprishta, having overtaken, praja, all citizens, bhuvi, on the earth. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation. The younger brothers of Maharaj Yudhishthir observed that the age of Kali had already arrived throughout the world and that the citizens of the kingdom were already affected by irreligious practice. Therefore, they decided to follow in the footsteps of their elder brother. Purport. The younger brothers of Maharaj Yudhishthir were already obedient followers of the great emperor, and they had sufficiently been trained to know the ultimate goal of life. They therefore decidedly followed their eldest brother in rendering devotional service to Lord Sri Krishna. According to the principles of Sanatan Dharma, one must retire from family life after half the duration of life is finished and must engage himself in self-realization. But the question of engaging oneself is not always decided. Sometimes retired men are bewildered about how to engage themselves for the last days of life. Here is a decision by authorities like the Pandavas. All of them engage themselves in favorably culturing the devotional service of their Lord Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. According to Swami Sridhar, Dharma, Artha, Kama and Moksha, or fruitive activities, philosophical speculations and salvation, as conceived by several persons, are not the ultimate goal of life. They are more or less practiced by persons who have no information of the ultimate goal of life. The ultimate goal of life is already indicated by the Lord Himself in Bhagavad Gita 18.64. And the Pandavas were intelligent enough to follow it without hesitation. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatham Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhano Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. First of all, I would like to seek the blessings of all devotees present here, that I may be able to speak on the exalted subject matter of Srimad Bhagavatam, especially here, where the chapter is entitled Pandavas Retire Timely, Retiring. It's a very, very important principle which is enunciated in the Vedic Shastras about, like yesterday, His Holiness Chandramouli Maharaj was very nicely explaining the last few days. We've been discussing, hearing from him, and the importance of Varnashram Dharma. And like in yesterday's the verse, Srila Prabhupada also mentions that we have discussed about this many times before, the system of Varnashram Dharma, as it is strictly followed by the inhabitants of the world, and especially by those who are residing in this holy land of Bharatvarsha, where the Vedic principles are very sincerely followed, strictly followed. And this Aryavarta province of the world, which emphasizes the importance of leaving household connections at a certain stage of life. The training and education was so imparted, and thus a respectable person like Maharaj Yudhishthir had to leave the family connection for self-realization and going back to Godhead. So, no king or respectable gentleman would continue family life till the end, because that was considered suicidal and against the interest of perfection of human life. In order to be free from all family encumbrances, actually the devotee and devote oneself 100% to the devotional service of Lord Krishna, this system is always recommended for everyone, because it is in the path of authority. And we can see there are so many examples in these Shastras where people have shown by their own example. Lord Krishna in Bhagavad Gita in 18th chapter, as is mentioned in the purport, he explains, he has given the most important knowledge, especially for this Kali Yuga, considering that the people in this dark age of Kali, they actually need this light of Shastra, and that too in a very, very condensed form. Like we've been celebrating the Gita Jayanti, This is like one of all the Shastras, Bhagavad Gita is like the Sar. And in that also, the essence of the entire Bhagavad Gita is explained. There is only one verse which comes actually 2 times in this. And before explaining that, Lord says to Arjuna, Sarva Guhyatamam Bhuya Shunume Paramam Vacha Ishto Sime Dridamiti Tato Vakshami Te Hitam. So Lord is saying that what I am going to speak is Sarva Guhyatamam. It's like earlier the Lord has explained to him what I am speaking to, the confidential knowledge, that is explained as knowledge of the Brahman. And later he explained about the more confidential knowledge, which is the knowledge about Paramatma, or the super soul who is residing in each and everyone's heart. And now he's saying this is Guhyatamam. That means the most confidential knowledge, which the Lord is explaining. He says, I am seeking to you my supreme instruction because you are my devotee. So he's saying, so this essence, and then he continues, Manmana bhava madbhakto madhyajimam namaskuru mame vaishyasi yuktavyam atmanam matprayam. That is actually in the 9th chapter he says, and in the 18th chapter he says, Bhakto sime prayas cheti rahasyam etad uttamam. So, Mame Vaishyasi Satyam Te Pratijane Priyosime. You are like the most dearest. That is why I am explaining this very most confidential knowledge to you. So, Srila Prabhupada, in the purport, he says, this is the knowledge which is actually missed by many people when they read Bhagavad Gita. This essence is not understood by the common people. But one who is actually dear to Lord Krishna, he is able to understand this. And what Krishna is saying in this connection is the most essential part of all knowledge. So, Bhagavad Gita being the essence of all scriptures, and in Bhagavad Gita, this is the most important instruction which Lord Krishna is saying. And here we can see that how now, are following in the footsteps of Yudhishthira Maharaj. Now, the brothers or the other Pandavas, they are also following in his footsteps and renouncing their kingly opulences and going for Vanaprastha life. So, it is explained that one should therefore engage his mind in the Lord Supreme Krishna, Supreme Lord Krishna. And that is, this conviction actually is which has to be cultivated by one throughout his life. So although it's the Yudhishthira Maharaj and the Pandavas, they were great devotees of Lord Krishna, and they practiced this. They kept Krishna as the center of their life throughout their life. And now, at the fag end, they are actually able to renounce their kingly opulences and move to the forest so that they can focus only on the devotional service to Lord Krishna. So we can see that, as Srila Prabhupada says, according to the principles of Sanatana Dharma, one must retire from family life after half duration of life is finished, and one must engage himself in self-realization. But the question of engaging oneself is not always decided. So although we see in this world that many people follow this at the age of maybe 50, or if not 50, 60, that is the retirement age in the world we usually see. But still, after retirement, what should be done, that people are not clear about. Many times we see that after retirement, or sometimes people also very happily proclaim, I have taken VRS, voluntary retirement, even before the age of 60. But then after taking retirement, then they become consultants. And then they start on their own. Now they have started their own business. Earlier they were working for some company or something, and now they become. And then that is the time, instead of getting freed from their occupational profession and all,
they become more engrossed. Why? Because now it is their own business. Earlier they were working for someone else, now they are working for themselves, and they become more engrossed. And especially in the case of profession, like advocate or chartered accountant and all, we see there is no retirement age, because they are actually having their own profession, so they continue on without any end. Like I remember, one of our advocates, who was Mr. Shah, he was more than 85 years old, and he was representing our institution and many other cases in the court at that age. So he was in such a condition that he was not able to hear properly, and at the same time, whatever he was speaking also was with a feeble voice at this age. But still, he was very much keen. Of course, he did a lot of service for the temple, but I'm just saying it's not that only for the temple he is representing, he is doing other professional work also. So it is very important here we see that the acharyas or the shreshthas in the society, the Pandavas, they are setting an example and teaching us that how we should actually be ready to renounce at half of the life. So considering here we say 50 years, considering that human life is 100 years. But actually if we see in today's date, our lifetime is not more than maybe 70 or at max 80. So maybe if we consider that, then one should actually retire at the age of 40. But we see that people, so as per the Vedic tradition, we are expected in first 40 years to learn and to earn our livelihood, handle our family, and next 40 years or 50 years, we are actually supposed to dedicate for spiritual realization. And that we should, it's not that in the first 40 years you don't keep Krishna in the center. Krishna is always the center of the entire life. But only thing is, our focus becomes directly only focused on Lord Sri Krishna. And we see there are many examples in the Shastras whereby very, very exalted personalities. In fact, there is this example of Prithu Maharaj. Prithu Maharaj is also a Saktavish avatar of Supreme Lord himself. So, and he, when he was the emperor of the entire world, he was the protector and of the people, maintainer of all moving and non-moving beings. And he was also in control of his mind. It's not that he was a self-controlled person, and who had increased the wealth of his state, and who was the upholder of dharma for the devotees. And in his kingdom, everybody was so happy, and everybody wanted that he should continue. But at the peak of his career, he actually renounced. He handed over his the reins of this kingdom to his sons, who were very much qualified. And in fact, it is mentioned that even Mother Earth was lamenting that why such a good king? Of course, because he is an incarnation of the Lord. So she wanted his company for much longer time. But then why he went to the forest and along with his wife. And actually the citizens, they were actually aggrieved. They were crying. So we can see that Prithu Maharaj, if we see, he was thinking that, okay, unless and until I worship the Lord and fully focus on that, I will not become more purified. And I need to become purified by taking Vanaprastha and going to forest and engaging in chanting and remembering the Lord 24 hours a day, like our ancestors. And he was thinking of like how Dhruv Maharaj, he had done. Dhruv Maharaj actually at the age of 5, he had gone to forest. And within 6 months of total focused meditation on the Lord and performing devotional service, he was able to achieve the greatest of all, the goal of human life, that he was able to get the darshan of the Lord. So here we can see that although the citizens, they were also complaining, why you are leaving? Many times we see when somebody is there on the chair, some people have to force him, somehow the other, now you get off. But here we are seeing a situation where the people want that such a person should continue, but he is ready to give it up in the interest of his own, in a way, its own self-interest, that he can actually focus his activities on the ultimate goal of life for each and every individual and set an example for the others. Like it is explained, Prithu Maharaj's reign was so popular, and it was not that his influence was increasing just like the sun. It is explained that just like the sun, as we go north, the sun's influence actually increases. It's like in one of the verse, it says, just as the sun god expands his shining rays up to the Arctic region without impedance, the influence of King Prithu will cover all tracts of land up to the Arctic region. So recently, one of our friends, he had come from Sweden, and he was mentioning that as it's in the northern hemisphere near the northern pole, and he was saying the sun's influence over there, especially like in the summertime, it is so much that the sun never sets. Even at night, it is just like evening time, and then again the sun rises. So the influence of sun is there almost like 24 hours over there. So similarly, here King Prithu Maharaj's influence was also so immense. It's not that he had to advertise his activities or to increase his popularity. He has to use Facebook, Twitter, and all these digital mechanisms of showing what are the activities he has done. Nowadays, we see many of the politicians, they are always busy, and that whatever little work they may be doing, they want to advertise that, so that they can either influence the people, or they actually, or maybe many a times, sometimes to misinform people also, but to ensure that there is popularity. But here, in the case of Prithu Maharaj, his own work was such that all the people were so happy. But yet, when the time came, immediately he handed over his responsibilities to his son, who were qualified, and he retired to the forest. And we can also see, in comparison, in that same Leela, how between Prithu Maharaj and Indra, if we see, when Maharaj Prithu was performing the Ashwamedha sacrifices, and when he reached the 100th sacrifice, actually Indradev, with all due respect, he became actually fearful that, oh, here Prithu Maharaj is trying, maybe he is trying to take up my seat. He wants to dethrone me. And because of that fear, he was actually disguised himself, and he was trying to create obstacles on Prithu Maharaj's path. So, like we can see, so although Prithu Maharaj had never had the intention of taking up Indra's position, but Indra, because he was fearful, so here we can see how different personalities, how they behave. A person who's attached to his position and to his seat, he becomes fearful, and he tries to ensure that his occupancy it is increased. Whereas we can see that Prithu Maharaj, he was totally detached. And it's also explained that just like Prithu Maharaj worked tirelessly to ensure that all his citizens in his empire, they were all happy, and they were their needs were taken care of. So even after taking to Vanaprastha, it's not that he said that, okay, now I have a easygoing retired life, now I don't want to work anymore. No. Even after taking to Vanaprastha, he worked tirelessly to ensure that all the vows of Vanaprastha are fully taken care of, and with the same effort which he previously achieved, and by serving the people. So we can see in this example that Prithu Maharaj, both he did full justice to his responsibilities when he was ruling as a king, and as well as when he took to Vanaprastha life. So we can see that it's very important that we become irrelevant at the right time. It's not, So becoming irrelevant at the right time is actually makes us more relevant to the people. Because if we try to become irrelevant at the wrong time, then it will actually lead, it represents escapism, that we are giving up our responsibilities before the actual time which has come. And not being irrelevant at the right time, that actually shows that one is very possessive, or he is attached to his position. Like recently, we have seen there is a World Cup football, and after that, now many people have expressed their desire to retire from their career. Why? Because they want to ensure that at the peak, people continue to remember them in their good days, rather than retiring at a time when we actually become irrelevant. So that we can see even in sports. So when should one retire? That is a question which we can see so many examples in Shastras. Like there is this example of King Prachini Bharishar, who was the father of the Prachetas. And he had, to make his son eligible to carry on the services of his kingdom, he had sent them to perform austerities. But because it was taking them time, so even before his sons came back and he could hand over the full charge, he was becoming old. So he after getting understanding that it's important for him also to renounce his kingship, he actually gave or left instructions to the ministers to hand over charge to his sons. And he left as soon as the time was right. So as soon as one has developed perfect Krishna consciousness, one should actually leave home, and even though some of the material duties may not have been fulfilled, completed. So why? Because it is most important that we take care of our spiritual responsibilities. So Prachini Bharishit was waiting for the arrival of his sons, but following the instructions of Narada, as soon as his intelligence was properly developed, he simply left instructions for his ministers to impart to his sons, and thus, without waiting for their arrival, he actually left home. Also, we see the example of how King Uttanapad, his son Dhruv Maharaj, who in a very, very young age, at the age of 5, he was able to go to the forest, meditate on the Supreme Lord and get his darshan. And when Dhruv Maharaj came back, Uttanapad was overwhelmed, overjoyed, and he received him and he put him on the throne. But when it came to the responsibility, and then he realized, oh, just like my son has been able to make his life successful, I have not focused. All this while I was engrossed only in enjoying and of course fulfilling the responsibilities as a king. But now I should actually go to the forest. And so even he did not wait for his son to get married. Normally a father feels that his responsibility is to ensure that his sons and daughters, they are properly married and settled well in their life. But here we see that in the purport, Prabhupada says, it is very important to note that in this connection, that since Maharaj Uttanapad was greatly affectionate towards his son, and since it is the duty of a father to get his sons and daughters married as quickly as possible, but he did not wait for his son to get married, but he left home. And the answer is that Maharaj Uttanapad was a Raja Rishi. He was a saintly king. And although he was busy in his political affairs and duties of the government management, but he became very anxious for self-realization. Therefore, as soon as Dhruv Maharaj was quite worthy to take the charge, he took the opportunity and left home, just like his son had done earlier. So, and another example which we can see in the Shastra is that of Kardama Muni. Kardama Muni, despite he was also such a saintly person, and he had done so much of austerity that Brahmaji himself had come and asked him to get married and to in his family and enter family life. And at the ripe time, ripe age, he decided that, in fact, he had told his wife that, in fact, she was actually a princess, Mother Devahuti. And he had said that, okay, I will continue in this Grahastha ashram till the time I am able to give you a child. And after that, I have to go to the forest for my own spiritual self-realization. So, and when the time came, Kardama Muni, he actually practiced, during his brahmacharya life, he practiced yoga very rigidly. And before the marriage, he became so powerful and attained so much of mystic powers that Brahmaji had ordered him to get married and beget children. And Kardama Muni, actually, he did so. And he got 9 very good daughters. And then, and one son, that was Kapil Muni. So even though, and Kapil Muni was none other than an incarnation of the Supreme Lord. So at his home, he had the Lord as a son, but still, Kardama Muni, he left home to go for Vanaprastha life. So this is a very, very important lesson, that even if one has God in his home as a son, one should still follow the Vedic injunctions as it is stated, Mahajano yena gata sapanta. So that one should traverse the path which is followed by great personalities. And Kardama Muni, in his example, he is very instructive. For in spite of having the Supreme Lord as his son, he left home just to obey the authority of the Vedic scriptures. So we can see in Shastras there are so many such examples, beautiful, where great personalities, just like in this case Pandavas, we see that they have at the right time, when they understood that now Krishna is no more, now we should follow in the footsteps of the Pandavas. They decided to follow the footsteps of Yudhishthira Maharaj. Another example which we can see is that of Ambarish Maharaj. Ambarish Maharaj, he is known as the one who is fully surrendered, fully devoted to the Supreme Lord. And it is explained that in spite of the advanced devotional life of Ambarish Maharaj, who no longer desired to live with material things, he retired from active family life and he divided his property amongst his sons, and he took to Vanaprastha life and went to the forest to concentrate his mind fully on Lord Vasudeva. So, it is explained in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu by Rupa Goswami ji that Iha yasya harer dasa karmana manasa gira nikilaswapi avasthasu jivan mukta sauchyate. So, for a pure devotee, actually, whether he is residing in home or he is going to forest or reside anywhere, he is actually liberated. But yet, here we can see that how Maharaj Ambarish, he is actually ready to renounce his family responsibilities and fully concentrate at the lotus feet of Vasudeva. And we see that Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur also, he gives a very good example. Why it is that devotees, although it may not make much of a difference to continue in the Grahastha life, and because they were already fully Krishna conscious. But he gives the example that of a mercantile man or a businessman, when he is earning money, he is not satisfied with how much ever he has earned. A person who has thousands of rupees, he is expecting, okay, let me increase it to lakhs, lakpati ban jao. And after earning lakhs of rupees, then he feels, अरे भाई मैं क्यों नहीं उसको बढ़ा करके करोड़पति बन जाऊं, है ना? So he is always focused. He relentlessly keeps on trying to increase his wealth. So the same mentality is also seen in the devotees. The devotee is never satisfied thinking, okay, this is the limit of my devotional service. So actually, pure devotee, he thinks that why I should not increase further, why I should not increase my commitment, my devotion even more. And we can see that although in material world, people, when they are attached to material things, it actually increases the bondage. By working more and more for material things, they actually become bound. However, the devotees, by committing themselves more and more for the service of the Lord and for his meditation, they actually, it leads them to the path of liberation and to the eternal service of the Lord. And this is what we can see. Also, there are other examples that how even in the example normal of Dhritarashtra, if we see, although Dhritarashtra in the entire episode of his lifetime, he has always been seen as a attached person who was possessive of his kingdom, and he was ready to do anything and everything just to ensure that he continues. Like to that extent that he was ready to have food which was given by the Pandavas, especially it's explained by Bhima. Although he had tried to kill Bhima personally. So even, and when understanding such a precarious situation of Dhritarashtra, then Vidur, his brother, he actually came and he spoke to him such harsh words just to give him a jolt so that he can get awake from this slumber. And eventually, then immediately, as soon as Dhritarashtra got enlightened, then immediately the next day, without speaking to anybody, he actually left the kingdom, the palace, and he went under the guidance of Vidur, and Gandhari Devi also followed him. So here we can see that Sanjaya, who was the assistant of Dhritarashtra throughout his life, he was actually feeling so, like he was feeling cheated, that all this while I served my master in such a way, but in the last end, he did not even tell me anything, he did not reveal his mind, and suddenly he has disappeared. So, but Sanjay was actually feeling guilty, or he was feeling bad also, what will happen to Dhritarashtra? But it is explained that he was looking at things from his own vision, whereas he was not aware that Vidura had actually enlightened Dhritarashtra. And unless and until, and he actually left home in full enthusiasm and cheerfulness. It's not that Dhritarashtra, he became morose ki now abhi mera koi bhavishya nahi hai, to abhi mujhe I have to give up my life. Not that way. Rather, to ensure that now I can prepare for my next life in a much better way. For that reason, so with full cheerfulness and enthusiasm, he had actually left. So unless and until one is convinced of a better life after renunciation than of the present life, one cannot stick to the renounced order of life simply by artificial dress or staying out of home. So this is a very important principle. We have to understand that means even in the Vedic system, it is explained that the children, the ladies, the women, and the elderly people, they need to be protected, they need to be given shelter. So it is explained that elderly people need to be given protection and taken care of so that they can prepare for their next life. It is very, very important. So it's at a certain point of time in each and everyone's life, it is we have to understand that we become relevant only by becoming irrelevant. And we can see that in the example of Priyavrat Maharaj also. Maharaj Priyavrat, he was ready, he was guided. His father, Swayambhu Manu, he wanted to give up his kingly responsibilities and take to Vanaprastha ashram and go for self-realization. But Priyavrat Maharaj, who was at that time practicing brahmacharya, he did not want to take up the responsibility. He was feeling that, okay, why not I continue to focus only on the devotional service to the Supreme Lord. So, but on the advice of his superior, Brahmaji himself had come and guided him that no, it's the Lord's desire that you should take up this responsibilities of this kingdom. So in this entire example, in this pastime, we can see that how Priyavrat Maharaj, he expressed his renunciation by accepting the post of the king and following, and the opulences associated with that, and taking up the responsibility in a detached manner. Although he continued to be the king, he was totally detached from the opulences. On the other hand, Swambhu Manu, he externally he renounced the entire kingdom and he went to the forest and focused on the devotional service to the Supreme Lord. And thirdly, Narad Muni, who was actually the guru of Priyavrat Maharaj, and he had only guided him that no, you should focus only on practicing celibacy and renouncing our life. But he gave up that attachment to his views, and he accepted the Lord's desire, Lord's desire that Priyavrat Maharaj should become king and execute his duties, so that the people in general are properly guided and taken care of. So we can see that in different ways one can actually express his renunciation in the proper way. And we can see that when somebody actually retires timely, it actually sets a very, very good example. So, but if somebody wants to retire untimely, like we see in Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna in the beginning of the Mahabharata war, he was saying that, oh, I don't want to fight this war, I want to give up everything, I will go to the forest, I will beg. At that point of time, Krishna actually gave this knowledge of Bhagavad Gita and told him that no, you have to execute your duties. And on the other hand, we see Dhritarashtra, he actually supposed to retire, but he was still attached. So Vidura came and he expressed to Dhritarashtra that the time is now ripe that you should give up your kingdom or your attachment to this kingdom. So timely retirement of Pandavas, like here we see that both Lord Krishna and he actually gives affirmation. Means as soon as Lord Krishna passed away, and the timely renunciation of the Pandavas, that is very much appreciated, like here we see. So timing is actually very, very important. Like we also see, even in cricket, a player, although if he is a very powerful batsman, he may hit with full strength. But if he does not time the ball, the hit properly, then he may actually get out. Many a times we have seen. So timing is actually, if a player is actually glorified when he is actually able to time his stroke properly. So, and then he is considered as successful. So even in our life, we can see that if we actually do things timely, it is very, very helpful. And we can see, like in the scriptures, that everybody has to renounce, and give up the position to somebody else. Like I will end by this very nice example of how Jambavan, he was the hero in Satya Yoga. In Satya Yoga, he had performed many great feats. And it is said that at the time of Satya Yoga, when Trivikram Avatar was there, he actually circumambulated the Lord 3 times. He had so much power. But when in Treta Yoga, when during the Leela of Lord Ramachandra, that time he actually inspired Hanumanji. He inspired Hanumanji that you are the one who can actually cross the ocean and go to Lanka and come back. So in that way. And Hanuman became the hero at that time. But in the, again, during the Mahabharata war, actually Hanumanji, now he gave his position. He decided, okay, I will stay in the flag of Arjuna, on the chariot of Arjuna. He was and he took the back seat. At the same time, with his loud voice, he would cheer up the Pandavas and Arjuna. And Arjun became the hero. And now we can see that how the Pandavas, Arjuna himself, Arjuna, although he was such a great hero and warrior, but in the end, he was not even able to protect the princess, the queens of Lord Krishna. And he actually understood that, oh, now Lord Krishna has taken back his empowerment. So now actually I have become irrelevant. Now I should focus. And now here in this today's verse, we can see that how the Pandavas, they actually decided that we should now hand over the baton. Just like in the relay race, it is there. Person, he runs, and as soon as he completes his circle, he hands over the baton, and then he moves to the side and gives a chance to his team member or his partner to run. So like that, similarly, we can see that it's very important that nobody is actually can be a permanent hero in this world. Those who don't accept this principle, if they want to continue to be hero all the time, and they actually land up becoming very miserable. So if we actually want to make our life successful and give a very, very good example to our friends and our followers, then we should actually give space to others and retire timely, and at the same time increase our Krishna consciousness and increase our commitment to devotional service to the Supreme Lord. So thank you all very much for your kind and patient hearing. Hare Krishna. Srimad Bhagavad Mahapuran ki. So anybody has any comments or questions, you can. It's already 9:15 now, but thank you. Hare Krishna.